Well, do you like the SEC? Do you like the ACC? We hope so, because that's what you're going to get for the next half hour. So if not, you have to stick around. You're required to by law for a few minutes and give us that view or that download. Welcome to the latest edition of the Gauer Hour. Rob Joyce, joined as always by Megan Gauer. Megan, happy December. It's my understanding that snow is almost a thing, kind of, for you in Connecticut.
Yeah, we got it. It hasn't stuck around long, but that's okay. I'm
What
not
are
a
we
big
talking?
snow person, like 2 inches, so nothing significant. Though they closed all the schools for 2 inches of snow, which is fascinating.
You want nothing compared to. So I live in North Carolina.
Mhm.
We had a dusting. Like my back deck and my car were covered on Tuesday. Nothing on the roads. School canceled.
South.
More importantly, daycare was open, so like we're good to go. But yeah, like my boss was home with his kid. It's like Southerners, soft.
I mean, apparently Connecticut too, because since when do we cancel school for 2 inches of snow?
I will say, I'm Facebook friends with some high school teachers, and they all posted 3-hour delay. What is that? I didn't have 3-hour delays. Did you?
Yeah, it was always 90 minutes.
The adults make the kids soft now. It's 3-hour delays.
I mean, you don't even, now they just get like a text if they're off school. You don't have to go and turn the TV on and sit there and wait for your school to pop up anymore.
I'm older than you. My alarm would go off to the radio, and you'd be listening. Andover, Bolton, Columbia. Are they going to say Coventry? Are they going to say Coventry? They'd skip over, and yeah, you just don't know. Now, text, come on, get out of here. A lot to get to on the basketball side. Highlights of the week, basically the ACC SEC Challenge this weekend. We do a top 10 game, TCU and North Carolina in Texas. Notre Dame hosts UConn next week as the Irish's wild schedule continues. But we begin it all, as always, with everything that's happened since last week. There's a reason, Megan, I don't gamble. 2 weeks ago, I was feeling myself. I told you Notre Dame over USC, check. Told you UCLA over South Carolina, check. Felt good after Wednesday. I said Oklahoma would beat Louisville, nice comeback. And then last night I said Kentucky would win, and I said Ole Miss would win, and I said Texas would win, and I thought LSU would win comfortably. SEC let me down. But last night, a lot of good basketball last night.
Yeah, really good games last night, particularly that Notre Dame-Texas game, and then that LSU-Stanford game too.
Notre Dame coming in obviously had that miserable weekend in whatever exotic place they were, with the collapsed TCU, followed up with a loss to Utah. Come back last night, nice win over Texas. What do you make of the last week for the Irish? After last week, we were giving them all sorts of praise for that USC win.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't make a whole lot of the TCU loss because, like we talked about last week, they're traveling a lot. Like, I do think TCU is probably a good team. Like, it's not a horrible loss. Combined with the Utah loss, it's more of a head scratcher, especially a Utah team that hasn't looked great to start the season and just lost its head coach, like a program that you're not exactly thriving at the moment. But then you turn around and beat Texas. So I think I'm just going to chalk it up to what I think we've seen from a lot of these teams this season. Like, there's a lot of new pieces. They're playing tough schedules. Like, you're going to drop one or two here or there. It doesn't really change my opinion that Notre Dame is still one of your top 5, 6 in that upper tier of teams in the country.
Yeah, I think last week, a couple of things. One, the depth got tested for Notre Dame. You play 200 minutes in a basketball game. The starters played 340 of those possible 400 minutes. As I forgot. I literally forgot until like 2 days ago. Liza Carlin is on the team, and they're still waiting for Maddie Westbeld to get back. And then when you play twice in as many days, you don't have time for adjustments. So a fourth quarter collapse against TCU happens. You don't have any time to turn around and figure out what went wrong. You lose again to Utah. And I think you saw the adjustment. Irish had a miserable day in the front court, a weekend in the front court against the Frogs and the Utes. What'd they do last night? They played zone and dared Texas to beat them from 3, and the Longhorns couldn't.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy with Texas, because until this Texas team proves that they can shoot the 3, that's always been like the holdback of this Texas team being like that Final 14 in the last couple of years. Like, the defense has been great. Their post presence has been great. Their guards are good, but they just can't shoot the 3 that well. And if they like beat you on 3s, hats off to them. But I think that's a good gamble to take.
There's a stat, the percentage of points you get from 3, dead last in the country coming into last night was Texas. 292nd in 3-point percentage. So the amount of shots they take that are from 3. When these two teams are so evenly matched, you're going to give up something, right? And if you're Neil Ivey, you're not going to sleep if you let Madison Booker and Rory Harmon dictate the pace and beat you that way. If you're Niele Ivey, you sleep if Shea Holly has a career game and you lose because they made 10 threes. Like, that's just not what they generally do. So, you did Texas to beat them from 3. It worked in the first half. Second half, I thought Texas did a much better job getting the ball inside, even after Taylor Jones got hurt. Worked it down, wild fourth quarter, and then Notre Dame comes out in overtime, hits back-to-back threes, and Texas goes, so crap.
Yeah.
And that's not a way for Texas to win. So important win for Notre Dame. From the Texas side, I wouldn't be too alarmed. Like, the thing, if Texas doesn't turn it over 21 times,
yeah, they win that game.
They probably win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think for Texas coming in, you're playing in a really tough road environment. You're playing a really good team. You take it to overtime. Like, this is the first, I don't want to say like real game, but because they did play West Virginia, but it's like the first really tough game for them outside of that West Virginia game that they've played this season. So, like, this is a team that's still warming up. Rory Harmon, like, is still coming back from an ACL tear. Like, she's not 100% there yet. Like, if this is where you are right now, I'm not concerned about Texas.
Turns out to have not mattered. Do you think Harmon was fouled?
I think that she created the contact. So, like, I didn't think it was a good call. But, like, it doesn't matter.
No, they won. But in real time, I thought, oh, that's absolutely a foul. Then you see the replay. And I mean, she sold
Harmon,
it. Oh, yeah.
She sold it. Like, it was smart of her to try to sell that and, like, make it easier on them. But, yeah, like, I didn't think that was something that should be called after the replay there.
I will say, you mentioned West Virginia. So last week I said West Virginia wouldn't play anyone until like the end of January. I didn't look at the bracket of the Gulf Coast Showcase. Well, quickly, they hung in with Texas.
Yeah, they did. So.
This is going to be the last chance for a while that West Virginia has a chance to make some noise. I think I got a 60-second overview of the team from someone not in the program, but around to it. Basically, JJ Cornelly's a star. Jordan Harrison's probably the heartbeat of that team. Well, she had 8 turnovers against the Longhorns. They have a nice 3-point shooter in Sydney Shaw. They're just not overly deep or overly big. So if they run into a Texas, a UCLA, a South Carolina, that's not great. If they get the right matchup, sneaky, like Elite 8 type team.
I can see it. I mean, this is a team right last year, like, took Iowa to the wire, and what was that? The round of 32?
Second round.
Like, yeah. So, I mean, the next step would be second weekend. They get the right matchup, sure. Like, they just got Caitlin Clark last year.
Other games from last night. Want to go? No, we'll do South Carolina Duke because that was the other top 10 matchup. It looks like the loss to UCLA might have been the best thing that happened to South Carolina. Since then, they've been on a warpath.
Yeah, exactly. This game was over after the first quarter. Honestly,
by the time it joined television.
Yeah, exactly. It was over. Yeah, I just think this is what South Carolina does usually, though, right? And like, we haven't maybe seen it as much this season, but we definitely saw it last night. Like, they come out, they beat you down with what they can have, and then they bring in their next wave of players and bring it up, like, run up the score more, and then you get to the end of 10 minutes and the game's already over. If you can't hang around for that first quarter, you're in trouble.
I mean, I feel like it is a little different. In the past, South Carolina, the last 2 years, you've been able to hang with them for maybe a half, maybe 3 quarters, and then by the fourth, the depth just beats you down. The size just beats you down. And this year, until the Iowa State game, slow starts were a thing. I mean, I came out here and said, don't need to change the starting lineup. They get off to slow starts. Well, since then, they massacred Iowa State in the first quarter. Yeah. They beat whatever bye game. I don't remember who they played, but they won by 1 billion. And then they came out and finished Duke off by the first media timeout, basically. 17-2 run. Good night. If they're going to get hot from deep, it's so hard to beat them. I think they only made 5 threes, but they were 4 or 5 in the first quarter. And then you're not going to, it's hard to come back from, especially if Duke's best player doesn't show up. And Reagan Richardson had a bad night. Night.
Yeah, we've said this 100 times, but like, to beat South Carolina, right, you need to, like, they need to have an off night, and you have to play your A+ game. And Reagan Richardson being 1 for 8 from the floor is not an A+ game for Duke.
She played 1 minute in the first quarter.
Yeah. I don't
know. Like I said, there's the difference between beating Kansas State and beating Oklahoma, which are 2 very good wins, but you did it in front of 1,000 people in the Bahamas. There's a difference between that and walking into Colonial Life.
Yeah, exactly.
Duke messed around and found out. Concerned is probably the wrong word, but the defense, 85 points to Maryland allowed, 71 to South Dakota State, 62 against K-State, went to overtime against Oklahoma, but nearly gave up 100. How many did South Carolina finish with last night?
81.
81. They had 50 at halftime, and then they took the pedal off in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Did whatever it wanted. Are you worried about the defense?
A little bit. I still think it comes together, right? Like that's just been this identity of this Duke team for so long. Like I can't imagine it doesn't get better. But I don't know. Like we're on game 8 now. We're not on game 3 anymore. So it's a little concerning. And I think Duke needs that to step up because, like, I mean, they scored 71 points last night. So like that's pretty good. Granted, a lot of that came in the fourth quarter and kind of garbage time, but still, like, that's a lot more points than I would expect, like, Duke teams in the past to score against South Carolina. So I think the offense is taking a step in the right direction. If they can get the defense there, they're going to be a much better team.
You know whose defense is legit? The other team on Tobacco Road, North Carolina.
Yeah.
How about that performance from the Tar Heels?
Yeah, big game from them defensively. I mean, it is hard to hold Georgia Amore to 30% shooting from the floor and nothing from 3. I was impressed.
This is a championship level defense. Like no one has scored more than, one opponent has scored more than 53 against them. That was UConn. Didn't hit 70. Villanova, not a great team, but 36 points. Indiana, weird team, 39 points. Kentucky, 53 points. That enough is going to keep them in most games.
Yeah.
I still have some questions about the offense, but I think it's starting to come together.
Yeah, they got a good contributions from 3 players last night, and then some points off the bench. Like it is starting to get there. It's still not clear to me who their go-to player is, and it probably should be SB, but I do think that they need to kind of figure that out. But it slowly looks better every game.
I think it might be Renee Kelly. Maybe
That's
not
fair.
now, but as the season goes on, I don't think she had the best shooting night last night. That 5 o'clock tip, admittedly, I didn't watch too much of this game.
Yes,
5 o'clock, that's tough for a parent with a toddler. Just saying.
Yeah.
5 o'clock, bad time. You're talking dinner, you're talking cleanup, you're talking bedtime routine. Good night. 9 o'clock, boy, I'm tired. We need every game in the country to start between like 7:10 and 7:45 Eastern.
Oh, the 9 o'clock games with the overtime. I was like, that game went to overtime, and I was like, this game was good, but like, I kind of just wanted it to end so I could go to bed.
Yes, I will call up ESPN. They need to create a couple more channels. Every game, 7:15 to 7:45 Eastern, please. Thank you very much. Anyways, Kentucky. This is kind of what I expected Kentucky to be in the preseason. It's one game on the road. Where was that game? Case in point.
Yeah, I think it was at North Carolina. Yeah, it was at North Carolina.
Clarence Strack struggled inside. Amore had a bad shooting night. If that happens, they just don't have any options.
Right.
Otherwise, it lowers their ceiling because those two in particular have to play well every game, and that's unrealistic to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're very reliant on those two, and that's going to be the case. So they're going to drop some when those two have an off night. And I mean, Georgia Amore's off nights are going to be few and far between. We know that. So like this is still going to be a good team, but you're going to be able to get them if they're not having a great night.
Yeah, 2 more games from last night. The other overtime game, LSU Stanford. Very impressed by Stanford. I know they ultimately lost. This is a Cardinal team that I think is going to live in around the top 25. I thought they'd be a kind of a bubbly team. Mm-hmm. I think they might, if they keep playing like this. I don't think hosting is within the realm, but 5 seed, 6 seed.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think they're better than we all expected them to be. And like, I know we say there's no like moral victories. And I mean, it's probably tough to take this one as a moral victory when you were up 5 with 23 seconds left and you end up losing the game. But like to hang around with this LSU team at LSU, it was a ruckus crowd. Like that is a really good showing from Stanford, regardless of the end result.
Last year, did you know they were top 50 in 3-point shooting last year? Because I feel like the eye test did not indicate that at all.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't realize that.
Because I
guess you still had Hannah Jump last year, so I guess that tracks. But yeah,
sure. This is percentage. This year they're top 5 nationally, and it passes the eye test this year. They are lethal from 3-point range. Which, when you do that, especially against a team like LSU, that they don't like to shoot threes. It seems you keep seeing it. LSU, I still don't know what to make of them. Like they look. I don't want to use the word disinterested because that implies that like the players don't care or effort. I'm not in the business of questioning college players' efforts, but boy, it looks like at times like they're not playing basketball.
Yeah.
They're just having a shoot around.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems to be at the start of all these games, right? Like they always seem to figure it out. Like even last night, you're like, oh, they're finally like got from this like awful start to this game, and nope, they figured it out.
Right, and they can turn it on so quickly, and you can see like they're so good. Right. Why can't they do this for just 40 minutes?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing for this team. And it's surprising in a way because it's not, I mean, it's a young team, but it's not a super young team, right? Like Anissa Morrow's been around the block for a while. Flaja Johnson's a junior. Michaela Williams is the one that's turning it on, but so she's a soft. I don't know. These are players that you have some experience. We're not talking about a bunch of freshmen where you kind of expect the inconsistency.
Yeah,
I feel like you see it in flashes though. Like this can be a top 5 team if they want to be.
Yes, 100%. I mean, they have the capability of scoring 30 in basically any quarter. Not many teams can do that against good opposition. The difference is they also have the capability of giving up 30 seemingly in any quarter. I mean, and Cheyenne Day Wilson, like this is what, her third school? She's not new to college basketball. They aren't overly deep either. They really only play, I guess they played 9 players last night, but a couple got sparing minutes here and there. They basically played 6. So that's a concern going forward. But they weren't deep last year either.
Yeah, exactly.
One other game from last night, I turned it off in the third quarter because I thought NC State had it in the bag. Ole Miss, copy paste. If you watch the UConn game, that's what the NC State game was. So no one needed to win like that, though. I know it was a near collapse. No one needed to win like that more than the Wolfpack, though.
Yeah, they've had a rough kind of few weeks, so to get that win, I think is really good for NC State. I'm surprised by this one because I just thought like Ole Miss had enough size that like we've seen the same thing for NC State and all of those losses, right? Like they don't have the size to compete inside and like kind of does them in. But I mean, Zoe Brooks, huge night. I feel like it was just like the night of like sophomores. I mean, Zoe Brooks had a huge night. Agara for Stanford, Williams for LSU, Hidalgo, and then Booker too. Like all the sophomores showed off last night.
Yeah, NC State out-rebounded Ole Miss. I think they ultimately lost points in the paint, but it was basically even. The guards got going, which that's not my concern with NC State. Season wouldn't have been over by any stretch if they had lost. Maybe if they blew a 22-point lead and lost. Going to safely be a tournament team, but just felt like they needed to see something go right against a quality team. And we'll see how now if they can get back in the top 25, pick up some more quality wins, and suddenly non-conference, it's not a pass, but you go into ACC play with a little momentum, there's no reason they can't be right at the top of the ACC.
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, I think beyond Notre Dame, the ACC feels pretty open. Like, obviously, Stanford's good, but, like, there's all these teams that are kind of in that top 25 range.
Right. Duke is good. North Carolina looks really good. I think the last year, the top of the ACC was pretty good, and then you had like NC State trying to be a Final Four team. Virginia Tech was really good before Liz Kitley went down. But I think that was, and then Notre Dame was good as well. I think it goes a little deeper than that this year.
Yeah.
And more Final Four quality teams, that is.
Yeah.
Ole Miss.
What's
the real Ole Miss?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just like, they're always going to hang around, but until you show us that you can win one of them, I don't know. Like, this feels like a winnable game.
Well, first of all, Coach Yo has a problem. That NC State team out-toughed you?
Yeah.
Well, what I want to know is, for halves, they look like they aren't even close to a tournament team. Yeah. They're that bad offensively. And then,
I mean, you can't score 6 points in a quarter. Like,
and they did it twice in a week. Like, this isn't a one-off now. Then you go through a quarter stretch where you look like you could beat the New York Liberty. Like, and all told, it's probably just a comfortable NCAA team that can't punch above its weight class. But there's got to be some sort of consistency, literally within the game, let alone within a stretch of a week or a month or a year.
Yeah, it feels like almost the same thing we just said about LSU, just with a lower ceiling than this LSU team. Like, you have it in you see it in flashes. Like, how do you get it to all come together for? Don't even give me 40 minutes. Give me like 30 minutes.
Right. And unlike LSU, the defense isn't really the problem. It's
Right.
just the offense.
Yeah.
If they go into stretches where they're bricklayers,
Mhm.
and then suddenly they get a couple turnovers, they see one or two go in, and all of a sudden they're top 5 offense in the country for 10 minutes. But you're down 18 or you're down 22,
Right.
and it's not enough.
Mhm.
I think the bigger concern is Ole Miss for a half got out tough by a team that hadn't shown a whole lot of toughness, and that's their calling card.
Right.
So that's what concerned me more than what became a 7-point loss on the road to a good NC State team.
Right.
Any other takeaways from last night? Nice win for Cal. Cal is sneaky.
Mhm.
Nice win
Yeah.
over Alabama. I didn't watch a whole lot of that because
Me
that was one of the
neither,
other 9 o'clock games, and there are already 2 good 9 o'clock games.
Yeah.
I only got 2 screens.
Yeah, no, but good win for Cal. Not great news for Alabama. I feel like they've maybe dropped a couple. I can't remember.
That was their first loss.
Okay, first loss. Just kidding.
The problem is that was, I think, their first actual team they played.
Yeah.
All due respect to Clemson. It was. Yeah, they beat New Orleans, Alabama A&M, Troy, Norfolk State, Alcorn State, Louisiana Monroe, Alabama State, Clemson, Georgia State.
Yeah. Okay.
Not a murderer's
row. That's not exactly impressive. Yeah, we'll get a better sense for them. I mean, it was a close loss to Cal. You got Michigan State coming up. Got a Richmond team that everyone knows I like coming up. And then you get into SEC play. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
I think there's pressure to beat Michigan State and maybe Richmond. I said this, I think, in our show 1 or show 2. If there's a team that's going to miss the tournament that's ranked in the preseason, like Alabama was it, because they just don't have margin for error in the non-con.
Yeah.
And they failed their first test, a loss to Cal. It was close. It was on the West Coast, but still loss. If you lose to Michigan State, all of a sudden, the bottom of the SEC is bad. So sure, if you beat up on all those teams, great. You got to get Ole Miss, Texas, South Carolina, Kentucky, Oklahoma, LSU. You got to get one of those to boost the resume. If you're 24 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you have 9 losses and none of them are against top 25 teams, even in the SEC, is that enough?
I don't know. It's so hard to say right now because it so depends on everyone else. But you're definitely putting yourself in the bubble conversation by doing that.
Sure. Yeah. Now, if you beat Michigan State, beat Richmond, take care of the business of the teams you're supposed to beat in the SEC, probably fine. Yeah. Wednesday, nice win from Oklahoma. I have big thoughts on Louisville after that. But credit to Oklahoma, probably their best defensive performance of the season. And they erased a 17-point deficit. Peyton Burholst, nice fourth quarter against their old team.
Yeah, I feel like that's what Oklahoma can do because they can shoot the ball so well. Is you can't really count them out because if the threes start falling, they can get themselves back into a game. But I think a good showing and a good rebound from that Duke game that got away from them.
Yeah, if they can find a way to win that type of game from Wednesday when Skylar Vann only has 5 points. Sahara Williams committed 9 turnovers. She's going to be good, though. Willing to overlook a bad 20 minutes of basketball. Willing to overlook, you lost a shootout to Duke. That's fine. I know Oklahoma can win shootouts. I learned a lot more about them, I think, Wednesday in their ability to, on the road, overcome a deficit, do it when their best scorer has an off night, and when they need to, they can buckle down defensively against a team that admittedly isn't the best offensively, but still, it was nice to see.
Yeah.
Louisville, you are at home. You forced 27 turnovers. 27! You attempted 19 more shots. You led by 17 in your house, and you lost. I don't care if it's Oklahoma or UCLA. Can't take you seriously. Can't do it.
Yeah.
If you want to be take you seriously in being a top 20 team, a top 15 team that is in the upper echelon of even the ACC, that doesn't happen. So I'm out on them.
Yeah, it just feels like they're lacking something, and I don't know. I never really count a Louisville team out just because I feel like all these years that we're I don't know how good this team is going to be. Most years, Jeff Walz has them doing something by the time we get to March, but
they are young. They have a couple of senior veterans, but otherwise, yeah, they're not the oldest team in the world. Right. I'll give them that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's someone that we're gonna be like talking about a ton, but they'll probably hover around top 25, so they'll be up there all year.
We will talk about them later because I have a big game Saturday in Brooklyn, 9 o'clock.
I'm not going to that. It's way too late for a New York City game.
Ugh. Well, they play UConn in their game 2. Game 1 will feature Tennessee. How about that? Did you watch any of that Tennessee-Florida State game? That was a wildly entertaining game.
I did not catch that one.
Lady Vols stormed out of the gates. They're up by 18 at the half. You think it's over. And Sanaya Latson did Sanaya Latson things, nearly scored 40. Tie game at the end of the third. And then last possession was tough. Z Spearman, the game winner for Tennessee, but 8 seconds left with the ball. Latson did not touch the ball on the last possession.
No. Florida State, you can't have that.
No, bad shot by Omaria Gordon, who otherwise I thought she was electric, and Tennessee wins. We'll talk more about Tennessee in a little bit. I'm wildly impressed by the Lady Vols. Talasia Cooper redshirted last year. She hardly played in South Carolina when she was there. She looks the part. She's the real deal. Tennessee probably be ranked next week. They play Iowa, so AP voters are weird. I said it last week. It doesn't matter if they're ranked or not. But AP voters are weird. If you lose, they won't be ranked if they're currently not. Any other takeaways from the week before we move on to the Megan Gauer portion of the show, and that we have net rankings?
Yes, we do. I don't think I have any other takeaways from the week. No, it
was mostly ACC, SEC, and the schedule builders, be it as it may, gave us nothing else to talk about. Net rankings. This is a thing now on the women's side. It's slightly different than the men. What they consider Q1 versus quad 2 versus 3 or 4. The metrics are slightly different than the men. Like I think a quad 1 is only the top 25 teams at home. So. And men, I think it's top 50. Regardless, net rankings are out. These are also not the end all be all, but it is probably it's more important than the AP poll for the committee. They will look at this more than they will. Oh, who did the coaches poll think is the top team in the country?
Yeah, I look at net ratings as like obviously they determine your quad, so like your opponent's net rating is important, and then in terms of like bracketing and like making the field, like it's a barrier to entry, right? Like it's not that end all be all. Like you could be 20th in the net and like miss the tournament, but like if you're 70th in the net, like you're not gonna touch the tournament. So like your net needs to be in the right range to even have a chance.
Well, early on, you won't be surprised. South Carolina, UCLA, UConn 1 through 3, TCU's 4, Michigan State is 5, Vanderbilt is 8 early on. You know better than I do just how this stuff works. This is more of your world. It's still early, but if power conference teams start in the top 10, like they're not going to fall that much unless they, of course, epically collapse in the loss column. But like this is a promising start for the Spartans and Commodores, right?
Yeah, I think it's good for them because, like you said, their conference lights, even if they lose some games, like aren't going to kill them as much in terms of net ratings just because you're playing a higher level of competition in a Power 5, Power 4, whatever the heck we're calling it these days.
Power 4
conference.
Big East is not a power conference. They have one power team.
So that's good for them. I mean, obviously, I think part of why both of those teams are up there right now is like they beat up on bad teams, and like that does help your net. So I expect them to come down to earth some, but like it's a good indication that those teams are definitely going to be in net positions that are going to help them come March. But like there have been teams that are 20th in the net that missed the tournament, so like it doesn't mean that much.
Sure. For your 3-bid A10, first of all, tough loss for Richmond.
I know. A tough loss for St. Joe's too. They lost pretty handily to Nova.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah, Richmond, if you missed it, lost Tuesday at the buzzer to Georgetown. Didn't realize St. Joe's lost. The positive, the net is still pretty good. Richmond is now 29. They were 20. So that was a tough loss. St. Joe's is 40. George Mason is 42. The problem is we just talked about it's hard for teams to fall in power conferences. At this point, it's going to be really hard for those teams to climb up, right? Just because the schedule isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Richmond still has a few more games. They've got Texas coming. They've got Alabama coming. And I think one more power conference game there too. They've scheduled. They've scheduled really tough. The other two, it's going to be a little hard. But you're in a good spot right now where you want to be like top 60 to be in the conversation. So like you're gonna fall, but like you've done something to get yourself up there. I thought George Mason played well versus Maryland last week too. Like Maryland did win the game, but they played them pretty tightly.
To answer your question, Richmond plays Columbia Sunday, sneaky game.
Yes,
Texas,
that's the other one.
And then I believe these are neutral site games against Tennessee and Alabama.
Yeah,
back-to-back days, 2 weeks from now.
That's tough, but like I mean, that's a lot of opportunity, right, for Richmond still in that schedule. You got to win some, but it's opportunity.
Yeah, if they get one, like if they got Tennessee or Alabama, that'd do a lot for their resume.
Yeah.
Harvard
Columbia
is a top. Columbia as well. Harvard's a top 40 net team. South Dakota State's 43. Fairfield is 44.
Fairfield is one is going to struggle because like a Harvard, a South Dakota State, the A10 teams, like those are higher level mid-major conferences.
Sure. Fairfield's going to start playing, all due respect to the MAC. They're going to start playing MAC teams and it doesn't matter, right?
It's going to plummet their net, unfortunately. Yeah. Not because they're not good, just because like that's who they're going to be playing.
Right. Winning by even like a 15-point loss to a fourth place MAC team.
Right.
That might be like 170th in the net.
Right.
And it's going to go down.
Yeah.
That's fair. Any other takeaways from that? It's still early, so these are going to shift.
It's early.
They update them every day, which is nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It does mean that you'll start getting bracketology updates for me because I really hate updating it without the net.
When's the next one coming?
Well, I was hoping today, but the day job's been a little crazy. So hopefully sometime this weekend or Monday, I think is a quiet game day. So maybe Monday. It's easier to update it when there's not like 4 top 25 games going on at once.
I can confirm that Monday and Tuesday, for that matter, are quiet days as we start our preview. Tomorrow, decent slate tomorrow going up against College Football Championship weekend. We'll start with the 2 games in Brooklyn. You got Tennessee, Iowa, and then Louisville, UConn. Louisville, UConn, I don't have a whole lot on this. I gave my spiel on Louisville. I don't really think they're going to win. Much like the wins over North Carolina and Ole Miss, Huskies are better than a top 25 team, clearly. I've been impressed with their defense, minus like the third quarter against Ole Miss. I expect the Cardinals to struggle to score, and that's why I think UConn will win. Probably comfortable in that, like a 15 to 20 point win. It's not going to be a blowout, but I don't think it's going to be that
as long as they don't play like they did in the first half against Holy Cross on Wednesday.
I had to turn that game on. Man, you know what I don't like
Hopefully
to do?
They got that out of their system.
I will say, SNY, who does most of the non-national UConn games, when you just go, let's go to Chelsea Sherrod at halftime, and you just see Gino sitting there smiling.
You know it's bad.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He keeps it cool on TV, and he gives, his normal Gino sarcasm, but boy, not happy. And it's amazing television.
Yes.
Louisville, they've played 4 real teams. They shot 32% against UCLA. They shot 36% against Kentucky. They shot decently well against Colorado, but they struggled from deep. They shot 37% against an okay Oklahoma defense. Until you can prove to me you can score against a good team, you're not going to beat a good team. Tennessee, Iowa. This is one.
This is going to be a fun one.
Sneaky, good 2 teams. Do you know who leads the country in scoring, Megan?
Is it
Team-wise?
Iowa or Tennessee? Tennessee.
Do you know who leads the country in offensive rebounding?
Tennessee.
Do you know who is second nationally in steals?
Tennessee.
3 for 3. They press, they run, they shoot, they have size. They haven't played anyone until Wednesday, where they narrowly passed the test against Florida State. So we saw some peaks on Wednesday. We saw some valleys. I think this is our another good test here, really, for both teams. I think we'll take a lot away, regardless of the outcome from both of these teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think these are 2 teams that are not. Is Iowa ranked or no?
They're close. They might be ranked this week.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say they're 2 teams that aren't in the top 25, but like I think might be top 25 teams.
Iowa's 17th.
Okay, so they are ranked. But yeah, I think this is a fun one. I think we're gonna learn a lot about both of these teams, like you said. I mean, Tennessee, like you said, Florida State was the first real test, so this is another test. Like, see what they look like. I'm still just like impressed by how many pieces they were able to bring back with the coaching change. So like, I guess it makes sense that they're a little better than expected, just because they do have some consistency and talent. And then on the Iowa side,
Iowa.
I said Tennessee.
Oh, yes.
But I guess you could say the same thing about Iowa too. I'm like, yeah, both of these teams have new coaches. And then Iowa, I mean, right, we all know how good Lucy Olson is, so I think that has like transitioned well there as well. So I don't know. I don't have like a strong opinion on who's gonna win this, but I do think, like, regardless of the fact that it might not be a top 25 matchup on paper, it's a top 25 matchup.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you on Tennessee. Of course, they went to the portal, but they kept Jewel Spear, who I think came off the bench on Wednesday because she was hurt prior to that. Talasia Cooper, she redshirted last year under Kelly Harper. She looks like their best player. Tess Darby looks like a different player. She can do more than just shoot threes. And then they brought in from the portal, I really love Samara Spencer from Arkansas. That's a perfect player for that system. Smaller, but lightning fast, little jitterbug all over the place, chaos, perfect for that type of system. And then, yeah, step up for Iowa. Hawkeyes haven't played a bad schedule.
Right.
They haven't played like a Louisville type schedule where they're just, or a Notre Dame type schedule where they're just playing top 10 teams. Like their best win is Virginia Tech or Drake or Kansas. All like fine teams.
Yeah.
None of them are going to, pop out. They survived 2 games in Cancun without Lucy Olson. So that was nice to see. 2 teams, I think flying under the radar that they're going to have a lot of eyeballs on them if they win this game.
Yeah, I agree.
Who you got? I have no idea.
Is Olsen back? Do we know?
Maybe. I mean, she had she had a weird cut on her knee. More likely than not to play Saturday.
Okay. Then I'm going to go with Iowa. If there was no Lucy Olson, I think it would be a pretty easy pick to go Tennessee.
Apparently, she tripped while leaving the raised court at the makeshift Hard Rock Riviera Hotel Maya that they were at in Cancun. And she basically just needed stitches on her knee. And so she had to miss the weekend. Now she's had, by the time this game's played, 7 or 8 days for it to heal. So if she plays, I think I'll take Tennessee in this. There's too many question marks with stitches. That thing gashes open, and then like she has to sit, and she is not allowed to play. I'll take Tennessee. I don't feel good about it.
Also, I feel like if I played basketball, that's the kind of injury I would have, like tripped over the court and cut my knee open. I spilled half a cup of coffee on myself like 20 minutes before we recorded this morning.
Oh, are you a little klutzy sometimes?
Yes.
Happens to the best of us. Sneaky game Saturday, Oregon USC. That classic Big Ten rivalry, Oregon and USC. Juju busted out of a slump in a big way. It's against Cal Baptist, so I'm not as impressed as some are. But last week we said shoot less. She can shoot 18 times if she's going to score 40. That is allowed.
That's
she
allowed.
can shoot as many threes as she wants if she makes 9 of 11. Yes.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what version of Oregon shows up for this one because I feel like we've seen them be real good and then we've seen them struggle. I feel like USC probably takes this easily, but it's nice to have a little Pac-12 era game.
Are you sad that this game isn't at 11 o'clock on Friday?
A little bit.
On Pac-12 Network?
I know. I'm going to miss my 11 p.m. Friday tip-offs.
Oh, I will not. Not one bit. Oregon, I think the Baylor win was, it's not fool's gold, but I think a little less impressive than it looked to be when it originally happened. This is a solid 8-9 seed-esque team. Doesn't help there won't be anyone there in a 12,000 seat arena because the football team plays in the Big Ten title game that night. And I looked at their attendance. It's been sub 5,000 every game. So 5,000 seems a lot smaller when it's 12,000 seats versus when you're going to NC State and it only seats 5,000 and it's loud.
Right.
So I don't think USC will be overly troubled here. Ducks in the last 4 games, also, they need to shoot a lot better. They're 11 of 52 from 3, while also teeter-tottering and rebounding. Have to shoot better, have to hold their own inside. I want to see UC. You know what I want? I want to see USC have a big game inside. Been waiting a little bit for it. Let's go and see them against a halfway decent opponent and just throw them around inside for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Sunday, biggest game in TCU history, probably.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina. I think it's technically, if you're calling a neutral site game because it's at Dickey's Arena, but for all intents and purposes, it's a TCU home game. They've never made it to a Sweet 16. They've won some, I think, Conference USA and Mountain West titles. So I'm fairly confident. Biggest game in program history. So they're going to be up for it.
Yeah. I think this one's going to be fun. I think we're going to get a real taste of, like, how good is TCU. Like, the Notre Dame win was impressive. Can you hang around with South Carolina as the next bar? And I mean, maybe they can, like, rate Sedona Prince. Like, I think she can hold her own inside. You've got Haley Van List. She's going to be able to hold her own against the South Carolina guard. So I think South Carolina wins, but I think it's a close one.
To this point, Prince and Van Lith might be the best duo in the country the first month. I know there's Miles and Hidalgo and a litany of UCLA and South Carolina players. Beckers and Strong have been good for UConn, but these two have been playing like All-Americans. And obviously that'll need to continue. I think Prince has to be better probably than Watkins and Kitts combined production-wise.
Yeah.
Frogs run 8 deep, but they're really only getting consistent offensive production from 3. Taylor Bigby has the ability to get hot. And then Haley Van Lith, she's been playing so well. 4-to-1 assist turnover ratio. South Carolina's not a team that turns you over a ton. They're happy to sit in the half court and just beat the crap out of you in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
So she can't turn the ball over, because if South Carolina gets out and runs, like, that's just
right.
They're too good. You can't let them have something else too. And then I think Taylor Bigby, I'll say she needs to make 3 threes. Shouldn't have to be London Jones and go 5 for 5.
Right.
But the ball's going to be in Van Lith's and Prince's hands. Madison Connor is going to get hers from 3. South Carolina can handle those 3 things, but if Bigby comes out and hits a couple of early threes, forces the Gamecocks to scramble a bit, all right, we got ourselves a ball game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I just think it's going to be a good game. I think they're well matched. I think it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, TCU's not a joke defensively. If you're asking me right now who will make more shots if this game is like a grind it out, I'll probably take South Carolina, because Tina Paopao has quietly been very good.
Very good, yeah.
This year. I know people hit the panic button because South Carolina lost and they've had a couple of slow starts, and then they've beaten the crap out of Iowa State and Duke so handily that, just classic South Carolina. You don't look at, like, no one's going to go out and score 45 like Juju can.
Mm-hmm.
But Paopau's quietly had a really good year.
Yeah, she's been really good. She's been very consistent for them, which is, I think, what they need is some consistent contributions, because I think everyone else has kind of been like, some games are on, some games they're not, but Paopao has been a consistent scorer for them.
Yeah, and then an opportunity for their bigs. They didn't pass their first test against Lauren Betts, like an All-American level forward.
Right.
Take 2, Sedona Prince, All-American level forward. Watkins and Kitts, 4-15 shooting against UCLA. Really, no one showed up outside of Paopao and Tessa Johnson against UCLA. Chance for their bigs, especially offensively. I think South Carolina can make a statement. No one's questioning what South Carolina can do defensively.
Right.
They haven't had that big, I guess Kitts was good against Michigan, but they otherwise haven't had a big offensive game for their low post.
Yeah.
I'll take South Carolina.
I'm not going to bet against them in this one, but I do think it'll be close.
Sneaky good game Sunday, Ohio State, Illinois. We haven't spoken much about the Buckeyes because, well, frankly, they haven't played anyone worth talking about. Early thoughts on Ohio State against a lot of teams that they're supposed to beat?
I think they beat the teams they're supposed to beat. I think that's what we've seen so far. I think
no Cody McMahon the last few games.
Yeah, so without her, that's tough. But I feel like Illinois, if I'm remembering right, I'm opening it right now. I think they've dropped one that they shouldn't have, right?
It was close against Kentucky and Nashville, and then they got run out of the gym in the second half.
Yeah. And so, okay, maybe not something they shouldn't have lost, just a not good loss when you lose by 23. But otherwise, really, only team they've beaten is Florida State. I think Ohio State probably takes this one, assuming McMahon is back. I think she's just such a critical part of this team, but it's really the first test that they're gonna face as well. So it'll be interesting to see, like, outside of Belmont is the best team they've played, and that was close. It was a 4-point game. So you don't learn a whole lot about a team by watching them beat Ohio by 64 points.
Right. You got to get me out this drug of Ohio State. They burned me last year.
Yeah.
My hot take in week 2 was that they're going to win the Big Ten. Like, Jelani Cambridge is matching almost identically J.C. Sheldon's numbers from last year. Points, 16. Sheldon had 18. Assists, Cambridge had 5, Sheldon had 4. Rebounds, Cambridge had 4, Sheldon had 2. As many steals, as many turnovers. Their shooting numbers are basically identical. Like, they're the same player. The difference was Sheldon did it for an entire season.
Right.
Cambridge has done it against Ohio and Bowling Green.
Right.
But I don't think you can ask for more from a freshman.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's still impressive from a freshman, no matter who you're playing. But yeah, I think that's the difference there is, like, can she keep it going against these Big Ten teams now that those games are starting? Because they're not really playing anyone. They're in the non-conference. We've got one game coming up against Stanford, but other than that, this is all Big Ten. Which, I mean, granted, the Big Ten is enough of a gauntlet by itself, but
yeah, I mean, right
they
now
haven't prepared themselves for it so far.
No, Illinois, Michigan, Oregon. We've seen them ranked. They're not currently. Maryland, Nebraska's ranked. Washington is okay. They took LSU to the wire. UCLA, USC, Iowa, Michigan State, Maryland.
Yeah.
I'd listed just half the Big Ten that is either currently or has been ranked at one point in the season. Illinois, I don't know what to make. Win over Florida State. You watch the Seminoles, and there are some quarters where it's like, well, yeah, obviously Illinois beat Florida State. And then there are other quarters where it's like, oh, wow, that's a really good win over Florida State.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to take of it. They haven't shot the ball well in the last 2 games against Kentucky and Canisius. They didn't shoot the ball well against Florida State for that matter. But Kendall Bostic is really consistent down low. They're a very fundamentally sound team. They don't turn the ball over. They're decent rebounding. They get to the line a bunch. I don't know if they can score enough.
Yeah.
To compete with Ohio State. But that should be an interesting game in Columbus. I thought it was in Champaign. It's in Columbus on Sunday. Nothing Monday, nothing Tuesday. Megan can get bracketology done. She better. Wednesday, Iowa State. We already talked about Iowa a little bit. We'll learn a lot more about them. Tennessee, Iowa State, Michigan State, all coming up. I want to know if the Cyclones can defend anybody. That's my main takeaway from Wednesday. Can they defend anyone with a pulse?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Iowa State needs this win. It's been a bit of a rough go with the bad loss to South Carolina, the loss to UNI before that. They did get a win over Drake in the middle there. But
at the buzzer, basically. I think there was 0.1, but at the buzzer, at home.
Yeah. I'm interested to see. I think this will be a good test. I think this is probably a team that they're better matched with than a South Carolina, obviously. But I feel like they need to stop the falling every time that they play a top team. And this feels like kind of like one they got to get because, like, you're going to go play UConn. After that, that's going to be hard to get. And then it's Big 12 play, which is a little less exciting. But this feels like a non-conference one they kind of need to get.
Yeah, I don't question the offense. Audie Crooks is going to get hers, but they give up a bunch of points. They go up 35 to South Carolina Upstate. Congrats. South Carolina Upstate scored 24 last night and gave up 110 to Kansas State, so that doesn't count. South Carolina scored 76. It might as well have been a billion. Drake scored 78. Northern Iowa scored 87. Don't feel great going into Wednesday at Iowa for a team that averages 80 a game. Don't feel great going to, where's that game with UConn?
Mohegan. So basically home for UConn. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Don't feel great about it. So, and all of a sudden that's 4 losses heading into Big 12 play for a team that, again, it's all context, preseason top 10.
Right.
If they were, and it might've been too much too soon. If this was a preseason 23rd ranked team and you look and go, okay, that's okay. That's fine. Just expectations are different. Then the big one Thursday, Notre Dame, UConn, South Bend. Notre Dame's gauntlet of a schedule continues, but they're at home. They get to stay home now for a while. What are your keys for this one?
I think we learn more about UConn from this than we do Notre Dame. I think we've already learned a lot about Notre Dame. I don't think we've learned that much about the Huskies because they've won their top 25 games that they should win, but we haven't seen them play a team of the level of Notre Dame. For UConn, I think it's getting the third option scoring wise. Like Paige has been so consistent, Sarah Strong has been so consistent. We're starting to see AZ. I mean, she didn't really follow up the Ole Miss performance against Holy Cross. She also had the stomach flu on Wednesday, so like whatever. If she can be that consistent scoring option, but I do think it's going to take her a little time to get back. Thought Caitlin Chen played well, granted against Holy Cross, but on Thursday. So I feel like they need that third option to beat Notre Dame. I don't think you can beat Notre Dame with 2 players. And then for Notre Dame, I don't know, I feel like they probably should be favored in this one. They might not be, but like I feel like Miles plus Hidalgo is probably just as good as Paige plus Sarah right now. I don't know. I just feel like it's gonna be a close one.
Can the Huskies take care of the ball?
Yeah.
The numbers look good. They're 6th nationally in turnovers per game. Well, we saw what Ole Miss did to them when they applied some ball pressure in the third quarter. It was a disaster. Notre Dame's going to be that times 10.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's half-court offense, it's good. It's not great.
Right.
When they really got humming last night against Texas is when they started getting some live ball turnovers. They turned those into easy buckets, easy layups, gets the crowd going, especially in South Bend, gets Hidalgo all fired up with her whether she's making the layup at 5'0" or making the wild blind overhead passes to Miles for a layup. Got to take care of the ball.
Yeah.
You turn the ball over against Notre Dame, they're toast.
Yeah, I do agree. I don't worry too much about that, like, one quarter against Ole Miss, just because, one, like you said, the numbers have been good in general, and also it was like Paige had like 5 turnovers, and I don't think we see Paige have 5 turnovers probably again this season.
Yeah, I'm worried about a 4-quarter effort from UConn.
I have a vision absolutely.
I have a vision where they have a quarter. All it is, or a media timeout stretch where they just don't score or they rack up 5 or 6 turnovers and boom, there's a 12-0 run and they're not good enough.
Yeah.
You're right. Because, you're right. Who of Ashlyn Shade or Caitlin Chen or KK Arnold can score in double figures? Because right now, none of them can consistently.
Right.
And then UConn, I've actually been I've been pretty impressed with the size down low. Like they haven't brought a whole lot of scoring production. But Brady and Alalfi have been nice
defensively.
Defensively, rebounding, everything basically but scoring.
Yeah, and I feel like we've started to see a little bit of like Ice Brady passing out of the post. Some too. She had like again against Holy Cross, but she had 6 assists the other night. Like we're something's coming there.
I will say, if anyone knows what an injury crisis looks like, it's UConn. So from Notre Dame, do they have a game? They're at Syracuse on 2 days, Sunday, and then home. So so they have time. They're playing 6 players right now. Overtime last night. A lot of travel. I mentioned it last week, like 6,200 miles between USC and the Cayman Islands and home and Syracuse and home. That's just a lot of travel.
Right.
Wonder if the fourth quarter, like we saw against TCU, like we saw against Utah, do they wear down in the fourth quarter? Didn't see it last night. That could be a key as well. You got Christmas decorations up yet?
I do. The tree's not decorated, but it's up, and everything else is up.
Anything else? You got, the garland. You got a little candy cans.
Garland, lights, stuffed animals, all of it.
Are you an outside lights person?
No, too much work. Also, don't honestly know if I'm allowed to. I'm in a condo, so there's lots of rules. Yeah,
fair enough. We were gifted an elf on the shelf, which I never did as a child. That's like the most stressful thing. Like I forgot last night because I was watching 7 basketball games and my wife wakes up stupid early for work and was like, oh, I moved it. It'd be a problem if we woke up and the elf was in the same spot.
We never did that as kids either, but I do see that now on the internet. It's like the big thing.
Our son has trouble understanding the concept of you can name things whatever you want. The elf's name is Nobody. Because he said, what do you want to name it? I don't want to name Nobody. His name is Nobody. Great. Megan, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your Christmas decorations and your lack of lights. And we will talk again next week. We'll talk about Notre Dame UConn. I think there's more big games next week. Yeah. And then things will start to quiet down as you get to exams and teams just taking Christmas off and gearing up for conference play. So, Megan, enjoy your weekend. We will talk next week.
Sounds good.